Vince, is there any way to know that it's working? No, like the screen share?
I think it's working.
Okay, so I just click present to everyone.
Yeah.
And
it's recording.
yeah?
Yeah, I think that's good.
Okay. Vince, is there any way to know that it's working? Hey, it's working. Yeah. Yeah, it's like recording what I'm saying like 10 seconds afterwards. This is lecture, guys.
I see 5. There's microphone if you want.
Okay.
Let's turn it on right.
Hello? 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 Is that right? Like the screen resolution? Yeah. All right. All right. Hopefully, going over.
Just to scale.
Okay.
Scale then told you.
Okay. Yeah, we're good. Okay.
Hey everybody. Hi.
So these are the people that are not in CS61B, right? Yeah. Or there's a midterm, so. How are you guys? Good? Midterm's almost over? Yeah. All right, let's get started. Today is gonna be still about Rails, of course, but we're gonna be talking a little bit about front end. So we're gonna be talking about Bootstrap. How many of you guys heard of Bootstrap? Probably everyone, right? CSS, of course, and HTML. How many are you guys, like, thumbs up, middle, or down, are familiar with HTML and CSS? Okay, so a couple of downs. Okay, lots of downs. Okay, cool. I might like skip over some of the basics of HTML. If you get confused, just raise your hand. And I also brought some candies too. So if you guys ask questions, I'll throw you some candies. Shout out to Kenny because we went to Target. I was only gonna buy 33, but I bought 100 so everyone could have one. So you guys can come up if you want afterwards. Actually, you want to be in charge of the candy throwing? Yay. Okay, cool. They're Twix too. Everyone loves Twix, right? No? Okay. Anyways, today's stuff. We're gonna talk about the Rails asset pipeline and Sprockets, which is a gem. It manages your assets in Rails, Bootstrap and CSS, Rails partials, and if we have time, work on your projects. So Rails asset pipeline and the Sprockets gem, like, sounds kind of confusing, right? If you've never heard of it. It's very simple. It just manages your static assets. Is my voice okay, by the way? Is it too loud, too soft? Good. All right. So by managing your static assets, that means style sheets, images, and JavaScripts, and even HTML views. So I'm going to talk about what this actually means right now. Okay, PCM. That's the acronym. These are the major concepts of the Rails asset pipeline and the Sprockets gem. Okay, pre-compilation, concatenation, and minification. All right, you can actually make a rap out of that. It's pretty cool. Pre-compilation. That's it. All right. Anyways, pre-compiling. This is a pretty simple concept. When your client makes a request, basically what happens is these pre-compilers run, right? So we have .erb here, .scss, .copy, right? ERB is embedded Ruby, SCSS is Sass, copy is CoffeeScript, which is like a different syntax for JavaScript that some people like. So what happens is these pre-compilers, they run, right? They run, so like for embedded Ruby, right? When you put that in your code, they run and they change that to HTML. Then they send the request over. And the same is for Sass and for CoffeeScript. So actually this is like, you should really appreciate this because for some frameworks like Node, it's a lot more complicated to get Sass working. Like you have to put middleware in, it's pretty difficult. So basically what you have to know is you can use embedded Ruby, Sass, and CoffeeScript right away out of the box with Rails when you start a new app. Cool, so file concatenation. Who knows what this is? No? Are you guys, come on guys, someone has to know. It's like string concatenation. You guys know what string concatenation is, right? Yeah? So what is file concatenation? Yeah, that's all it does, right? It's fusion, right? It's not fusion, it's not fusion. Kind of like fusion though. So right, for your JavaScript and CSS, what happens is imagine these three files are CSS files, right? What Sprocket basically does, it's a gem that's already like pre-entered into your Rails app when you start a new Rails app. It basically combines them, it concatenates them all together. That's all it does. It takes your CSS files and then concatenates them to one big file. The same with your JavaScript. So in the end, what you have is two big files, basically at the end, right? For your JavaScript and CSS. So let's take a look at this actually. So right here, this is on my local host, right? This is a website I made on Rails. It's called Alusi, shameless plug. We're basically we just actually recently got 501c3 status. It's basically we're using design design on apparel to raise awareness for specific causes. So if you guys want to talk to me more about that, want to join? It's pretty fun. Anyways, so if you look at your assets here, you can see that it's actually not concatenating them into one big file, right? And if you look at the server, actually, you can see it's making multiple GET requests for each specific file. That's bad. That's slow. But if you look in deployment, like in actual production, if we look here, by the way, like I'm like opening this thing. Does people know what this thing is? Console spec element? No? Okay. But how many people like have opened this before? Okay, cool. Yeah. For those that haven't, like this will change your life. Really, it will. And I'll be using it a little bit for some of the front end stuff. But if we look at our assets, look at that. It's just 2 files, right? It's just 2 files because it concatenates them and then sends them over as one big file. Any questions? Cool. And I'll talk about minification next, which is why it looks all weird on one line. So yay. Okay. So yeah, this is. Oh man, I was gonna ask a question here. Too late. Anyways, one request is better than multiple. It's faster. It loads your HTML and it loads your app faster, basically, which of course is better in terms of business things and users. There's actually like a stat, like if your app takes more than 2 seconds to load, the amount of users you lose that will leave is like a substantial amount. It's like 60% or something like that. So it's crazy. I just like had a CS 169 lecture and they said Amazon, if their like load time takes 100 more milliseconds per 100 milliseconds, they lose, what was it? It was like a big number. It was like 10% of their revenue. Like it's like at that rate. So speed is very important. And as CS people, we know that. Or I'm sorry, we're not all CS people here. As all of the Rails people know, we know that now. Yay. Anyways, okay, file minification. Who knows what file minification is? Cool. Mm-hmm. Correct. Twix. Okay, cool. So it's basically making some big monster, big file, right, into a smaller monster that's the exact same, like has the same functionality as the monster, as the big monster or big file, right? So if we look at the code here, this is some JavaScript that I wrote that's unminified. And when you minify it, which Sprocket does automatically for you before it sends it over, it looks like this. I actually have to click an enter here because I wanted to get an entire slide. But it's one line because it takes out spaces, it takes out comments, it takes out basically anything unnecessary. So it's smaller. And why is that better? Why is this compact, unreadable thing better than this thing? Yeah.
Takes up less space.
Okay. Less space, so memory? Memory? Okay. Okay, that's good. I like that. There's another reason. Yeah, you can go again, because, oh, never mind. Kind of back.
Download.
Huh?
Faster to download.
In what sense?
I mean, you don't have enough data to send over the network.
Right, there you go. And it's actually faster to download too if you like want to download it from your browser. Networking is an awesome class. I haven't taken it yet, but you learn like about packets that are sent over. But the smaller it is better because a server has to send this stuff over through some magic thing. I don't know how that works to your client, right? In an HTTP request. And the smaller it is, the faster it is. Rails is beautiful because you don't even have to worry about this. Like it abstracts this all away from you. So you just have to write your CSS, your HTML, and your JavaScript, and it just works. Actually, I forgot to like. All right, I'll go to that later. It's good. Yeah, it's good because that stuff. Cool. So let me see here. Let me show you really quickly how this like is actually kind of working in Rails. So this is a previous app I made. So the Sprockets gem handles all this for you. Basically, if you see this application.css.scss, right? You see this required tree and require self. Yeah. So if you look at, can everyone see that on the top? Yeah. Okay. Cool. Everyone can see the code, right? Should I make it bigger? Bigger. Okay. Cool. So what happens is, so this application.css.scss is in the style sheets directory, right? So if we go to, sorry, I should have set this up all beforehand. It's a little late. My bad, guys. Okay, so style sheets, right? It's in here. It's in this directory. So basically, what required tree means is that it's capturing all the CSS files in that directory and putting them all into one big file, right? And doing that recursively. So if there are subdirectories, it'll do the same for the subdirectories as well. That's why there's a dot right here. This is a little dot. Require self just means require this file as well and append that CSS at the end. So for example, if we go here, right? So let me see here. So let's see a class, a CSS class on this. Okay, so it's subheader, main cause subheader. So if we add some CSS here, it will actually work. So what happens is after it takes all the files in the directory and combines them, it also adds this at the end. So if I make the background color, let's make it red, right? So this is just CSS. We refresh, you can see it's red now. Cool. The same is for JavaScript. So that's Sprocket, guys. Does anyone have questions? No? It's pretty cool, right? Like, just remember that acronym I gave you, PCM. And that's the major concepts of the asset pipeline and the Sprockets gem. Okay. Cool. So now we're going to talk a little bit about Bootstrap. Yeah, what's up? Oh, CSS? Oh, okay.
Like, the files at CSS dot.
Yeah, Sass, the .scss. What's Sass? Okay, so, there's CSS and Sass. Sass is the modern version of SCSS, I'm sorry. Basically what it is, I'll give some examples later, but it makes your CSS a lot easier to code. You can nest different classes within classes. I'll give an example later. And you can also, like, say you have like a lot of repetitive CSS, right? I don't know, maybe like a background color red on multiple things. And then, like, I don't know, with that background color red, you also have like a border of 5 pixels. Instead of typing out in 2 lines, you can just declare a function that like returns that CSS for you and just use that function within those CSS classes. I'll go into it a little more later. Check out Sass online. It should be on there. There's a couple of features it has. All right, what is Bootstrap? Does anyone know? Can someone explain what Bootstrap is to me? I know there has to be some front-end people here. Come on. Yeah, what's up?
It's a front-end framework. It's really convenient if you want to design websites on your phone for different devices. And it's just a really easy way to, because it has like pre-built styles for your pieces.
Yeah. So she got it right on point there. There's like just pre-existing classes you can use. But what's the major like big concept in CS that, for those that know Bootstrap, that relates to Bootstrap? Like the big concept. Minimalism. Okay. Yeah. That's, I guess, more design, but it's really abstraction, right? So I'm gonna like sort of, for those that don't know what Bootstrap is, so I have a button here, right? There's no Bootstrap enabled. It's not a Bootstrap enabled button because we don't have classes, and it would look like this, right? But if we add these 2 classes, which are defined in Bootstrap, if you look at the documentation, it'll give you that button, right? All you have to do is like add these classes, and it'll change it to look really nice. You don't have to write the CSS to do that. And that's sort of the beauty of Bootstrap, is that there's a bunch of CSS and JavaScript underneath. You don't have to know how it works or what like tons of CSS they wrote. All you have to do is really call these classes. They'll make things look pretty. They'll make things responsive. That's Bootstrap, and it's really awesome. We're gonna go a little bit through it today. But before that, let's take a break here. I want to introduce Jerry from UCodon. He's gonna pass out a quick or Google form, right? It's a Google form. Yeah, so you can come up and talk about UCodon. And after that, it's just 5 minutes. Fill out the Google form, and here's like a little pug message. If you guys can decode this, there's no right answer. What does this mean to you? It's just a fun thing. Yeah. Anyways, yeah. Go ahead, Jerry.
Hi, my name is Jerry, and this is Edward.
Hi.
We are third-year computer science majors, and we're from UCodon, UC Berkeley startup building an educational competitive platform that crowdsources the web and mobile app development process for computer science students. So like the Rails DeCal, we are trying to fill the gap between the knowledge gained from core CS classes and the skills necessary to build apps in internships and international. So we're part of this UC Berkeley like a startup program with Derek, and he was telling us that you all might be interested in more building. So I'd like to ask you to donate a couple minutes, 2 minutes, just to fill out a quick survey so that we can better understand the CS community.
Should I?
Yeah. Do you want? Okay. Yeah. Actually, let me plug back in. I can do it here. They need to see the pug message, anyways.
Okay. Yeah. It's ucodon.com/survey.
You can also like write it on one of the sides if you want.
A whiteboard. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Laundry. Yeah. Can we? If he sends me the emails, would that be too hard for like? Actually, no, I was gonna like think about it 10 minutes. We'll probably just do it afterwards. Yeah, there's tons. My bad for not. She just sent that on Jerry's. So if you guys get the URL, yeah? Okay. Unisys. Okay, did everyone get a chance to fill it out? Cool. All right. All right, we're gonna get started now on live demo stuff. Time is it? 7:38. Okay, so I'm gonna thank you guys. Yeah. So I'm gonna start up the app we're gonna make. I just want to show you how it looks like. 2 Twixes for people that understand what this flag and argument means. Someone that hasn't answered. Right. Cool. Cool. So basically, I'm just saying I want to launch this on port 3002. You can have multiple Rails apps running. This one's on port 3002. So, sorry. So this is what we're going to make if we have time. Just to demonstrate some of Bootstrap's abilities. Right. So I'm going to keep this running. I can because I can just run the one that we are going to use on a different port. Okay. So I just created a new app called Frontend demo _demo. Okay. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to first generate a new controller called static pages home. I'm going to go through this stuff quick because we already know it. So now if I go to routes.rb, you can see that the route is appended. Let's leave that for now. Let's also define the root page to be this action. Okay. When I go through this stuff, if anyone is still confused, like please raise your hand because this stuff should be known already. Okay. So now that I changed the routes file here, we have our home view because I generated the controller. So if we start our Rails app, obviously it'll just be this simple HTML that we have here. So let's go ahead and go to it. Cool. All right, so let's get started with some front end. I'm gonna paste this code in. I think some people are gonna be confused. So if you are, we can talk about it right now. So let me know. Does everyone know what this means? This stuff. Div. Div is so hard to explain. So div is sort of a container that contains other elements that are, and div is display block. I know all this seems kind of confusing. Basically what it means is that you can nest divs within divs or add other HTML elements, and it takes 100% of the width of its parent. It'll make more sense when I actually start messing around with it. Just let me show you how the page looks right now. Right, so I forgot to add the images. Let me do that really quick. So I'm just taking the images from my previous app that I made and copying it over. Right. So yeah, that's how it looks right now. Jessica's really big. Yeah. So divs, let's take a look and inspect the element here. This is what's so great about it is you can see the HTML. So you see how the div is, so this blue stuff right here is like the div, right? And you see within it are like two other elements, two other HTML elements. And you can see how the div is sort of like taking 100% of its parent. That's basically what a div is. If you want to learn more, go to the front end DeCal as well. They actually go more into depth about this. Okay, so cool. So we have this, right? But like I said, Jessica's really big. They're all uneven because the sizes of the images are different. So let's add some CSS to make these images the same size, right? So when I generated my controller, right, I have a CSS file. And here, let's go ahead and add a class to each of these elements. Let's call it team pics for now. While I'm doing this, can someone explain what a class is? Does anyone like feel confident in explaining what a class is? A CSS class. Yeah. Right. And by properties, she means like styling, right? Like border, width. For CS, cool. That's a good throw. We should have quarterback. Anyways, yeah, a border width. You know, for CSS3, which is like the new version of CSS, you can do things like transitions and more complex stuff. Just styling. So that's kind of tedious. So I have to like put like classes in all 4 of these things. We're gonna figure out how to fix that later. It's gonna be cool. Okay, so let's do this. So let's make the width 150 pixels. That's a good size. The height, let's make it auto so it scales correctly with the width. And do that. We refresh. Yay, they're all the same size. Cool. So I'm gonna show a feature of Sass right now. I'm gonna show you the nested. If you guys look up Sass online, the first thing that'll come up is probably like nested classes. So you can look that up while I'm talking about it. So for here, right, let's put a class on this div. Let's call it Howard. In regular CSS, you can't nest CSS classes, but in Sass, you can. So now that I did this, what do you guys think is gonna happen? Yeah.
It's gonna target elements that
Correct, right? So I refresh, Jessica, Wanju, and Vincent will be all messed up again. Yeah, so it only applies to Howard. And why is this such a powerful feature? Not only in terms of like being more understandable and less CSS, but there's one big thing why this is so powerful. Any guesses? For big apps where multiple developers are working on it. Yeah. Yeah, that's one thing. That wasn't what I was looking for though. Anyone else? Yeah. Okay, so there's one powerful thing about this, other than you can target specific elements better. If it's a big app, why is this so powerful? If multiple developers are working on it. Okay, so the answer to go ahead. Yes, that's like 3 Twixes. She answered. Yeah, exactly. Okay, cool. Yeah, it's gonna wake them up. But exactly. If there's multiple, for big apps, there's tons of CSS. There's a big chance that certain classes will be named the same as other classes, and that's like really bad, right? And one of the ways you have a solution to that is with Sass, where you can nest things. So usually you don't want to nest more than 3 levels, but even 1 level is enough. So if you have same names for same classes for like different reasons, but if you nest them, right, they actually won't conflict because of the nesting. Because this one only applies to a div with the class Howard, and then the children div that has a class team pics. Yeah, cool. Okay, that's one of the features of Sass. There's a lot more. Let me go ahead and delete that for now. Now if I refresh, it should still be the same. Okay, so it's not the same. So let's delete this too. All right, so one of the things we want is to make this horizontally aligned, right? In CSS, that's a lot more difficult, but if we use Bootstrap and their grid system, it'll be a lot better. So the first thing we're gonna do right now is add Bootstrap. So how do we do this, right? So there's a gem. There's like gems for everything for Rails, which is really nice. We're gonna download this Bootstrap Sass gem, okay? So if we read the README, it says add this gem. There's another gem here, but that's already pre-installed in Rails. Cool. Okay, so let's kill the server. All right. So another question. Why am I running bundle install versus bundle update? Or why am I not running both? Does anyone know the difference between the two? Or do you just like do bundle update and bundle install all the time? Okay. Anyone new? No? Okay, go ahead.
Just update like new versions of your gems. Install is like new gems.
That's correct. So bundle update, all bundle update does is update the versions of the gems that are already installed. You see like this weird syntax with like this version here, right? So if the owner of this gem like pushes to GitHub and changes the version, and it's within the constraints of this, then basically it will update that gem. Okay, and all install does is install new gems. It doesn't update. Okay, and like if you guys want to create maintainable apps in the future, you actually want to include like these versions, because if you like go a year later and then you bundle update for some reason, your app is definitely going to break because everything's updated and you didn't put constraints on what versions your gem can update to. All right, cool. So now we installed Bootstrap Sass. So another cool thing that you guys should know is Bootstrap Sass. So I'm running this command here, and this command basically shows you. Sorry, what did I do wrong? Yes, thank you. So it's gonna return a path. You can also use bundle show. This path right here is actually the actual files, the CSS files for Bootstrap. So Rails knows to look at that and apply it to your app. In other gems, Bootstrap Sass is a very well-maintained gem, but when you get better with Rails, you're gonna start using other gems that just suck, right? And you're gonna have to go to that path and look inside the gem to understand what's happening and change the appropriate things. Yeah, use this one. There's a couple of them, but I like this one. Yeah, don't use that one. You can just read the README, but I always use this one. Okay, so also in the README it says we have to add these commands. So let's do that. So let's add them here. So just with these two things, now your app is Bootstrap enabled. Cool. If we refresh the page, nothing should have changed because we haven't added any Bootstrap classes yet. Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. So let's start using some of the features of Bootstrap. I'm gonna change back to the slides right now. I left that over there. Okay. Fine. All right. Oh yeah. I forgot about the pug thing. Did anyone like come up with anything? 13. You're done. Cool. That's actually, yeah, that's right. Oh. I thought it's like I thought it was, this was CS 169 by the way. It was like on one of the quizzes just for fun. Huh? 0 what? I have no idea. I interpreted each like pug as a word. So I was like, I love backward hugs and dancing. That's what I thought it was. Anyways. All right, so the bootstrap grid system. Okay, the bootstrap grid system. This is going to be a little complicated to explain, but let me try. So the bootstrap grid system basically has rows and columns, okay? And what this allows you to do is make things mobile responsive, first of all, and make horizontally positioning things really, really easy, okay? And I'm gonna give you an example of how that looks like when you have a bootstrap enabled app. So here's an example. Check this out, right? So when I go to smaller screen size, like when you guys go to your tablets or your cell phones or whatever, you see that? You see how it jumped from basically these divs being horizontally aligned to vertically aligned, right? That's pretty like amazing to do with just adding classes, which is what we're gonna do. Okay, so that's why it looks good on like mobile devices as well. That's what mobile responsiveness means. It means it looks good in all types of devices, right? So like in CSS, if you do this in CSS, it's a little harder. You have to use media queries and things like that. In Bootstrap, all you have to do is add a class. So let's go ahead and do that. The first thing we want to do here is, okay, so let me talk about one more thing about the grid system. There's 4 types of devices that the grid system defines. They are large, medium, small, and extra small, right? So whenever, like, you know how I was decreasing the width of this thing? And then when it detects at a certain point to basically make them vertically aligned, right? And it knows this because it realizes, okay, now we're going to a small device, right? And before it was a medium, and this is probably a large, okay? So each row has a maximum of 12 columns, okay? We want to, so in Bootstrap, you always put things in containers if you want to like create a grid system. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's just call it container. And then we also want to create a row, right? So a row basically means like all this content within this div is going to be on one row. Nothing should have changed yet, but I'll talk a little bit about rows later. But let's go ahead and give these classes. So we want them to be, so like I said, the maximum columns in a row is 12. So if we want to horizontally align them, we probably want each of them to be about 3 columns, right? Actually, let me show you guys a little more visual picture of this really quick. On Bootstrap. So this is the grid system. And you can see here, this is a good example. This is one row, right? And within that row, they have 12 of the divs. And they define the class to be a column for a medium device 1, right? So you can see here, this right here corresponds to this right here. And then there's 12 of them. In the next row, we see that they define a medium device to be 8 columns wide, okay? And then also 4, and then this corresponds to this row. What's interesting is that they don't define like small devices or large or extra small, right? Basically, if you don't define those, it means that, so here they define a medium device. This also applies to anything larger than that, the device size. So for like large devices, it'll also be 1 column. But look when I decrease the size of this, it's going to, you see how it jumped like that? Because now it's a small device, and since we didn't define a small or extra small device, it assumes by default it's going to be 12 columns wide. Okay, so now these are 12 columns wide. Okay, cool. So if I do an example, it'll probably be more clear here. So let me, for large devices, I want it to be, actually for medium, let's say 3. Okay. We're going to copy and paste this on all of these. And if we refresh the page, sorry, I should close some things. Bam! Cool. Isn't that really cool? Like, just adding a class aligns it for you. Yeah? Let's check out what's happening here when we inspect the element. So you see, I defined this div to be 3 columns wide on medium and larger devices. And yeah, it's about 3 columns wide, right? The same would be for Jessica, for Vincent, and Wanjun. But if I, sorry, that's interesting. Okay, for some reason it's stacking. Oh, right, because this is so this is a medium device size device, and once it goes to small, it automatically defaults to 12 columns. So now this is 12 columns wide, this is 12 columns, and this is 12 columns. You can also make that more clear by doing like, I don't know, call XS 12, right, and then adding that to the rest of the things. But even without this, without these classes, the extra small class, it would still default to that one. Yeah, what's up? How do I make it that separate? It knows because of these numbers right here. So again, like this is a row, right? A row consists of 12 columns. So this is a row, right? That the blue thing is a row, and within this row, think of like 12 columns, splitting it up like that. And I said like for each of these people, for Howard, for example, he's 3 columns wide. So that means it takes up 3 columns. That's the width. Yeah. Okay. Cool. So another thing we want to do, right? It's a little off, right? There's if you look at this left side here, it's like more left. There's less space than this right side here, right? And that's because they're not aligned center. So let's also add a class to this. Let's call it people holder now. People holder is fine. Actually, let's make it person holder because it's only one person. All right, and then it's very simple. All you have to do is, this is the CSS for aligning things center instead of right or left. In this case, it defaults to left. And if we do that and refresh, see that? See how everything moved? Because now it's aligned center. Okay, but what's so beautiful about the inspect element is, remember in our app that we want to make, they were circles. We want to make these images circles, right? We can do this in the console here, and it will update real time. So it's really amazing. Check this out. You can play with a lot of CSS and see how it looks without refreshing the page or editing it on your editor. So to images, we want to make this a circle, right, instead of a square. The CSS for that is basically border radius 50%. Okay. Watch, Jessica is going to become a circle right now. Bam. Yeah. Cool. And it was just with this CSS right here. We can also, if you wanted to do rounded corners instead of a circle, you can also do pixels. So like if I made the pixels, I can increase the pixels and you'll see rounded corners. And I'm just pressing the arrow button right now on my computer, and it's just increasing the pixels for me. Yeah. Cool. Okay, so now that we know that's what we want, let's go ahead and add it to our team pics. Cool. Yeah. Cool. Cool. Yeah. For some people, I know this is like very easy, but okay. Cool. Is there any questions so far? No questions? Okay. Cool. Sorry, I had my notes. They're not aligned, so I'm gonna have to find where I am. Okay. So again, what's amazing about Bootstrap? Oh, and let me talk about rows for a second, right? So remember, why do we need this class row? So let's say we only want 3 people on one row, and then we want Wanju to be on the next row. So let's take Wanju out right here, and I'm here, and put him in a new row. And watch, he's gonna jump to an entire new row. Okay. And also a question that might pop up is, what happens if you do more than 12 rows, right? So like, let's say, so right now it's applying the 3 columns wide device, the 3 columns wide for each div, right? Because this is probably a large device, and we specified the medium to be 3 columns wide, and it applies to larger devices as well. But let's say we make this 4. Let's make Wanju's column 4. So now 3 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4 is 13, right? So it's greater than the amount of columns you can have in a row. So if we refresh, you see it just jumps to the next one. So it just jumps because it can't feel, it's too wide to continue on this column right here. It's too wide to continue. So, but if I change it back, Wanju's gonna jump back. Okay. Cool. Another interesting thing is you can nest grids within grids. All right. So what I mean by that is, let's say we wanted to, I don't know, give Howard some icons. Okay. And Bootstrap is really cool too because you have glyphicons. Glyphicons are basically icons that you can use for free. Let me pull them up really quick. See these icons? Like, it's really cool. They're all for free. All you have to do is define a span and give it these classes, and it will turn into an icon for you. There's also I wanted to really mention. I don't know if a lot of people know about this. The noun project. Like glyphicons is only like 50 of them. This you can literally like search up any icon, and it will like give it to you. And you're supposed to like pinky promise that you'll like give the designer credit on your site. So that's up to you guys. But most people just get them and use them on their site. Okay, so what I mean grids within grids is, okay, so let's give, before I talk about that, let's just give Howard some icons. Let's give him, I don't know, this search icon, right? Let's do 4 of them. Okay, cool. Right now, it's going to be centered, and it's going to be like really tight because basically there's 4 icons, and we're text-align centered, right? But let's say we wanted to spread them out evenly within this div right here. So we wanted like all these to be spread out evenly within Howard's div. We can also like create another grid within this grid. So if we give this like a class of column small 3, okay, and then we apply that to all of them. Take a look at that. So now each of these are 3 columns wide. We have a grid. So this is the big grid, right? Right here. This is the row. And within that, there's Howard. That's 3 columns wide, this div. And then within that, there's another grid system where these are 3 columns wide within Howard's div. So you can nest grids within grids, which is, there's a lot of use cases for that when you start like actually making websites. Cool. Any questions about that? Okay, cool. All right. Just wanted to show you guys that really quick. Okay, cool. So let's go ahead. What's also awesome about Bootstrap is you can like, there's a lot of templates you can use that look really nice, right? So I like this Jumbotron. I want to like use this and then maybe apply some CSS later to it, right? So we can just copy it. and put it in. And look at that. We're basically gonna have a Jumbotron here on our site. Yay. Yeah, it really looks pretty, right? Literally didn't do anything. It looks nice. Okay, so that's another cool thing about Bootstrap. All this is like literally all it is it's about like putting classes in the right places. Bootstrap tells you how to do it, and then you get nice, pretty things. Okay, let's delete this right now. We're gonna do the same exact thing for a header. Okay. So I already like copied and pasted the code from the header, so I'm just gonna grab it here. And since a header is like applies to all pages, right? We want to put it in our application view, which means it'll be part of everything. And if we refresh the page, the Jumbotron should disappear, and we have a header. Right? It's really that easy. I know, like you guys are probably like, for those that never like are familiar with CSS or HTML, you're like, what is this, right? It's too hard right now to go into depth about like these nested DOMs within DOMs. But if you want to learn, either come up to us and ask later, or the front end DeCal lecture by Sean Park and Andy, I believe. They teach you this stuff. So you can also see that the team is like being covered. The reason why is for those that know what positioning is in CSS, this header is absolutely positioned. So it's taken out of the normal body of the HTML. And basically it's like, that's why this is up here. So we need to define a margin of 50 pixels to push all the content down. So let's go ahead and do that in our CSS. So margin top. Cool. And everything should be pushed down after this. Cool, cool. All right. So I just wanted to show you guys the header because it looks nice and everything like that. Okay. So I could like either go on more. Well, actually, yeah. Let me talk about Rails partials, and then from there I'll give you guys a choice to either work on your projects, or we can like finish up this demo app that I have. Okay. So so let's go back to the slides here. All right. So what are Rails partials? Rails partials is just a way to insert HTML snippets into other HTML files. That's all it is, okay? So like you can have like some HTML snippet and you call render partial on another one, another HTML view, and it'll just insert that HTML file into the one you called it in, okay? And we'll talk why this is really important in terms of drying up your HTML, which basically means don't repeat yourself. Okay, so another like good practice with the application file is you usually want to keep it pretty clean and readable. Right now with this big nav thing, right, it's just like a lot of HTML that you don't want to see. So let's put this into a Rails partial. So to do a partial, you basically need to create a new file, right? And put in our HTML code in there. Okay, so I'm going to save this. Since it's like shared by multiple views, I like to put it into a shared directory. And let's call it header.html.erb. And you see the underscore there? Like before, that's prepended to the file name. The reason why we need that is because Rails uses that to detect which views are partials. So if we didn't have this underscore, it would like error out when we call the partial. Okay? Save that. Okay. So now this is basically the syntax to render a partial. We just call render, and then partial, and then we specify the path to that partial. This is in the shared directory. We have to put shared, of course, because application is not in the shared directory. And then, so if I do this, nothing should change on our application if I refresh. It's still the same. If I take it out, it'll disappear. So basically, what this is doing is saying insert this HTML into this file. All right. Now, here's a question for you guys. How can this help us with this code right here? Remember how I was like, when I have to add a class, I have to add it to all the basic, the people of this? Like, remember, like, if column median 3, I would have to add it to everyone, right? That's annoying. You don't want to do that. So how can we use partials to fix that? Mm-hmm. Yep, you got it. It's great. Wanju. All right, cool. Yeah, so that's exactly the answer. So what we're gonna do, first, we're just gonna take Howard and create a new partial. Let's create it in the same directory as our static pages, or the same directory as where our home view is, because we're just gonna use it in this this directory basically. Let's call it person.html.erb underscore person.html.erb. Let's paste this div with Howard in here, and if we refresh, right, there'll just be 3, right? But if we call render partial, all right, and then we have to specify the path. Since it's in the same directory, all we have to do is call person, because that's the name of the file. Sorry. Oh, and Howard should be back. Awesome, right? So seems logical, right? Let's delete all these people. Let's delete Jessica, Wanjun, and Vincent, and just do this. Should be the same, right? Nope, they're all Howard now. Too many Howards. Okay, so yeah, there's really no flexibility in this partial, right? Because we have to like define an image, and that image is all Howard. We can pass in variables into these partials to enable more flexibility, okay? And one of these variables is called object, okay? Object is a local variable. Basically what object is it's a local variable that has the name of what the file name is. So within this partial, we have a local variable called person. And we can define that local variable in this render partial method, right? So let's go ahead and define that. Let's define this one to be Howard. I'll just write it out. Okay, so this is Jessica. And yeah, this is a little tedious as well, right? But like obviously, if you only have to do this once, and after that, it's a lot easier. Like because if you have to change classes in your partial, you just have to do it once, and it'll apply to everything, right? This is why it's more readable. First of all, partial, like calling render partial is more readable, and it's drying up your code. Okay, so Vincent, right? Yep. And then we can do one junior. Oops, too much Java. All right. So yeah, so now if we use embedded Ruby here, and if we change this to person, right, that's the local variable that's defined from this, basically this hash, this key and value here that we put into the render method. Refresh, you can see now that we have Jessica, Vincent, and Wanjun. You still have to change the images though, right? And like I said, there's only one object that is defined in each partial. And it's the name of that is the name of the file name. So we need to also add more variables. And the way you do that is by specifying this. You just add more variables by passing in the hash to local. I believe it's local or is it locals? Locals, sorry. If we do this, and let's say file name, right? That's another variable we wanted to define. And let's go ahead and make it to the actual names of the images that we want. So I'm basically just going to copy and paste. It's the same thing for all of them. Just adding a local variable called file name. Okay. Go back here. It's already, this is already image tag is already a Ruby method, so we don't have to put another % sign for more, because it's already denoted as embedded Ruby. All we have to do is call file name, and well, bam, right? That's Rails partials. Any questions? Cool. All right. So I can go on more. It'd probably take the rest of the lecture to like do the form and make that background image. I can do that, or I can have you guys work on your Rails projects. What do you guys prefer? Okay, he says more Bootstrap. Does anyone else agree with that? Yeah. Seems all you guys seems tired. I'm sorry. I'm probably a boring lecture. Come on, guys. I need answers. Project?
Well, it's not in every project that is here.
Okay.
600.
So if I go on, would you guys be okay with that? Yes, you can have a 5-minute break. Actually, I think I need it too. So, in the meanwhile, if you guys haven't gotten a Twix, feel free to get some.
Make it rain.
Great.
Save your energy. Eat the basketball.
Oh no!
Not really.
Oh, that was you.
Oh, I'm so sorry. There better be no tricks left here. Oh. Alright, no more. Hey, who wants one? I think use it. No? Okay, do it. Oh, they don't. Basically, I'm just like crate and you yeah. 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 You know
Guys good? Yeah? All right, let's get started again. So while on break, all I basically did was I added a email model, right? I migrated that to the database. I also added an emails controller, and I defined one method create, post create, right? This should all be reviewed. Did everyone understand what I just said? Good. Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is let's just add some validations to our email model. So I'm copying and pasting this. Basically, valid email regex is the regex for validations for the correct email structure, right? It has to have like an @ and a something like berkeley.edu or something. So you can see here that we're validating the format to be a valid email. We're also making it unique. The length has to be, well, can't be greater than 255, and it has to be, there has to be something there, right? These are just validations. We talked about them before. Everyone understand that? Good. Cool. All right, so let's go ahead and go back to our home view. And let's define another div here. Right, let's make it another row. Okay. So if we refresh, it should be the same. It shouldn't be, oops, sorry. Should be the same, right? If you look back at our, the example how we want it to be, running on port 3002, we kind of want like this background image, right? All this background image, all it is CSS, okay? Honestly, like CSS is really fun because it's just like you search things online, like how do you do this, and you paste it in. It's kind of how it works. And I think of it as like a break because it's like you have all these algorithms that you have to like figure out with your homework, and you're like, oh, I just want to do something fun and make a website look pretty. So CSS is nice. Anyways, I'm just copy and paste the CSS code here. This is basically defining a background image. So if I include the hands class here, and I go in our CSS, and I'll explain to you guys what this means, but let's refresh and make sure it works. Go back to this. There it is. And I'm not sure why the margins are doing that. It's probably the container. There we go, that's better. So container and container fluid, these are just bootstrap classes. Container just means let's add a little bit of margins on the side. Fluid, I guess there's no margins. Okay, so what did I do to make like this background image? Obviously, like it looks like kind of uncentered here because of the screen resolution and everything. But basically, what I'm doing, let's take this right now. This is actually a SAS method, right? And it's just saying like we want the image to be the hands.jpg image, which I added earlier, and we don't want it to repeat. Here we're basically giving it a gradient. So if we inspect the element, this is basically like giving it a nice little overlay. If I turn it off, oh, that also turns off the image, but basically it gives it a nice little overlay for us to see, or for it to look pretty. And there's a height here. We define the height to be 100% of the viewport height. And what is a viewport? A viewport is basically this entire screen. So we're saying we want it to be the height, we want the background image to be the height of the screen, which is a full background image, minus 51 pixels. And the reason why is because the header is 51 pixels. Okay? And the width to be auto. These are basically just to make the background fixed, and all this can be like, if you guys don't know what this is, just like search it up online and it'll give a better description than what I could. Yeah. So cool. Now that we have that, let's go ahead and create a form. Okay. And for the form, I'm copying and pasting everything because we should all know this already. Here is our email create form. Remember, I added the email models just so we can, get emails. I don't know, maybe if you have a startup or something and want to, get newsletter, send newsletters to people that are interested in your company. This is a way you can get it, right? So the only thing different here that should look unfamiliar, or maybe not even unfamiliar to you all, is the controller emails. And the reason why we have to specify the controller here is because home.html.urb is within the static pages controller, right? That's why, because if we didn't put controllers emails, then it would assume that you want to go to the create method in your static pages controller. We don't want that. We want it to go to the emails controller. Of course, we have @email here, right? So we need to define a new email in our static pages controller. So let's go ahead and pull that up. And @email equals email.new. So when we refresh the page, a form should show up right here. Obviously, there's no bootstrap yet on this, other than it's in a row. So it just looks like a regular plain ugly HTML form. Oh, also like this is not title, this is address. But just delete that for now. All right, so we want to horizontally center this, right? One way we could do that is by using the grid system, okay? So for that, basically what we have to do is define a class here. Let's call it, okay, so we're using the grid system, right? So let's say we want the form to be, I don't know, 6 columns wide. But we also want to give it an offset of 3, right? Because remember, a row is 12 columns. So if we give it an offset of 3, it'll be pushed 3 columns over, and then the form would be 6 columns wide. So it'd be horizontally centered. Cool. So you can see I'm not sure why this is not expanding over. I guess because we don't have a width of 100%, so we need to give that as well. We can do that pretty easily. Let's define a new class. I don't know, let's call it email form. And if we go into your CSS and give it a width of 100%, it should stretch all the way over, hopefully. Might not. Okay, it's not. Oh, sorry, because it's still not working. Okay. I guess Bootstrap is overriding the, it might be overriding this style. That's what I think is happening. But for now, let's just leave it like this. And go on. So, cool. Right. Let me pull up Bootstrap's input groups here so we can see how to style an input. So that's the one thing about Bootstrap. When you use its framework and its classes, it's also kind of difficult you can customize it, but you're still within that, you're sort of just overriding the CSS that it has. So people that are actually professional web designers, they sometimes don't like to use Bootstrap other than the grid system maybe because they want to write their CSS themselves to make it unique and everything like that. So Bootstrap is very good for hackathons, put something up really quick. But if you want to make a very unique, well-designed site, sometimes you write your own CSS from scratch. So here, if we go to input groups, we can see that this is basically the HTML that you want to make this nice little thing that's a form, okay? So we want our form to look like this, right? Let's go ahead and do that. I just have the code here. So basically, you have to add a couple more divs, and like this for the submit button, you want to add button and button primary. So if we basically copy and paste this, it should look like that Bootstrap component. Let's go ahead and let's add a header as well. Cool. All right. So you can see that because it's container fluid, it's like, hold on here. Okay, I see what's happening. So Basically, what I have to do is also add a div above this, which has like the grid system classes, and if I do that, then it should be about 6 columns wide. There we go. I don't know why you actually can't put it on the form. It must be that the form is a certain like display. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's like an inline block or something, and it's just something's not working. But that's why you Google things and figure out what's wrong. CSS is a bunch of just messing with things and figuring out what looks nice, things like that. So yeah, now that we have this form, right? If we click create, nothing's, well, it's gonna say template is missing because we don't have any code in our create action in our email controller, right? So this just goes back to strong parameters, things like that, putting in the right, method for create, and it should work. And I'm not gonna go ahead and type that out because we should all know what that is. So let me go ahead and just put this in the emails controller. Okay, so, oops. So what am I doing here, right? I am, sorry. Yeah. So when the form is submitted, I basically have strong parameters here that allows us to get the address column, and we create a new email, and then we save it, and then we redirect back to the root path. Okay. So now refresh and add a correct email and click create. Cool. So obviously we don't know if it worked or not because it didn't error out, at least, but there was no flash message to tell us, yay, it was created, or no, it wasn't. But we can check in our Rails console really quick. So you go there, you can see that my email is added, right? But let's go ahead and add a couple of flash messages as well. Is there any questions? I know I was a little confused about putting the grid system correctly on this div and making it actually center and spread out. So is there any questions about that? Is anyone still confused? Okay, cool. So like basically like this div is the parent of all of its contents inside it, which let me go ahead and make this appropriately aligned for us here. So this div, this parent div right here, has this content, and this content is 6 columns wide, right, with the offset of 3. The offset of 3 is basically that thing right there. Yeah. Okay, cool. So the last thing we're gonna do is add some flash messages. You guys remember what flashes are, right? Okay, cool. So again, since we know what these are, I'm just gonna copy and paste the flash messages, right? Remember, flash messages only persist for one request, and then it's gone. But we want to basically say if the email, so we call email if at email.save, right? If it returns true, that means the email was saved. So we can put in the flash hash, the success key, something like here I put will be in touch soon. You can say your email was successfully created or anything like that. And for the flash error, we go ahead and put the error messages that were created from the validations. Or maybe even there's something else corrupted with your database. There might be another message in there as well. But this is our flash, right? So now that we have that, all we have to do is add the appropriate HTML in our view, and it should display the flash message. Okay? Cool. So as you can see, this is basically the appropriate HTML. Right? So let me copy and paste this, and then I will explain what's happening. Let's go ahead and put it here. Cool. So all this is saying is if there exists some value in flash success, go ahead and show that value. And there's another if case here that says if there's a flash error, right? We want to iterate through those errors by calling flash error.each, and we basically just want to show them, right? Cool. Okay. So refresh the page. And I'm going to talk about these are Bootstrap classes, by the way. It's what makes it look pretty. But I'll show you how it looks. So let's create a thing. And you can see there, since it was not a valid email, it says address is invalid. Try it again. It gives us 2 validation errors because it's blank as well, right? And it looks really nice, right? Like it's red and it has a little bit of rounded corners. Let me show you how a success looks like. Let's change this to, so it's different. Cool. So now that's a success flash, right? Cool. So what's making it look pretty is actually like this alert and alert hash success, or not hash. Sorry. Those things called dash. Yeah. So if we delete these, it'll still show, but it won't look pretty. It won't have CSS styles applied to it, so it'll look like that, ugly and not pretty. So Bootstrap makes it, it makes things look, at least readable really fast. Okay. And again, if we wanted to, if we wanted to make the hash, not the hash, the error messages, if we want to style that ourselves, we could do that, right? We could basically, let's delete these, right? And let's make it, I don't know, alert error. Cool. And if we go to our CSS, what I like to do before entering any CSS is just do it in your inspect element so you can see it real time, right? So let's create something. Cool. And let's add some styles to here. What do you guys want to add? You guys want to make it look red? Or okay, let's make it look red. Oh, Vincent nods, so I was like, yes, it is. So now it's red, right? Yay. We could actually add some margin or padding. I didn't talk about the box model. I could. Should I? Okay, I will. So does anyone know what the difference between margin and padding is? Cool. You guys are like my favorite people, always answering. Cool, thanks. Yeah, you.
It's right there. Cut margin.
Yeah.
It's like the space outside of the
Yeah, that's basically it right there and what she said. We can see this. Let's see this visually, right? So the first thing we want to do is go ahead and let's add a border so we can see it visually. I don't know. Let's make it 1px solid red, right? On a border. Okay. So padding is the spacing between the content and the border. So if we add padding, you'll see that the border was spread out, basically. So let me add that. See that? Cool. But you can see that it's still like really, you can see like right here, it's still very like attached to this form, right? Because there's no margin. Margin's after the border. So if we add margin, let's just add like 10 pixels as well. You can see that there's a little spacing now, right? We can also just add margin bottom if we wanted to. All these are just, CSS commands that, you memorize if you've done it a lot, or if you don't, you just search it up. So yeah, that's some code to make it look nice. But yeah, so let's go ahead and add this. We could do the same, right, for success. Let's make it green instead. So yeah, it should work. So basically what we're doing here is that we're overriding the bootstrap classes. That's what we're doing. Because the bootstrap class alert success, there's also that's defined in bootstrap. So this is an error, and this is an success. Oops, that was already taken. Let's go ahead and look at that. Cool. Yeah, I could go into positioning as well, which is a little tricky if you're new to it, like absolute positioning, relative positioning. But I think you guys are kind of tired. So I'll just end with this, you know. Front end is like a whole industry, right? Like front end engineers like get paid like 150,000 sometimes, maybe even more, because it's hard and it's to do it well it's very difficult. And there's like AngularJS, right, which is like a whole MVC framework just for the front end, right? I didn't go into like JavaScript and making things dynamic, but that's something that you guys might want to look into if you found this interesting. Another thing is we haven't talked about this in the Rails DeCal. Maybe we will. I'm not sure yet. But Ajax. When we submit a form, right? Yeah, it always like refreshes the page, right? It basically like you see this little refresh button up there. It's always turning, right? And in a lot of modern sites, when you like create something, that doesn't happen, right? Sometimes it just adds it and it doesn't refresh the page. That's one way to do that. The most popular way is through Ajax. And there's a very simple thing you can do in Rails to make a form or something else Ajax enabled. But that's more front end stuff, so we won't go too much into detail there. That's all I have. Is there any questions before we end? Cool. Thank you, guys. Oh, do you want to do tens? Wanjun's pulling it up right now.